And hopefully she'll tell me when we're, oh, it's being recorded. All right, continue. All right, and I think we are now live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our very special event with 6 fantastic authors, which is now 5 fantastic authors because one of ours was taken out by being ill. So we wish her all the best. My name is Kim Havens. I'm the event manager here at An Unlikely Story, and I'm so very honored and excited to host this pre-Halloween event this evening. It's a dark and stormy night here in Plainville, Massachusetts, and we're going to be talking about books that are spooky, magical, and some that are just the right amount of creepy. Our panel of authors will keep you up at night, but they're also fun and funny, and you're going to be very glad that you joined us this evening. Alan Woodrow is the author of many books for kids, including The Pet War, Class Dismissed, Unschooled, Field Tripped, and now, inspired by Dracula, old werewolf movies, Young Frankenstein, and an odd affection for fish sticks, The Curse of the Were-Penguin. When Alan isn't writing or noshing on bread-coated seafood, he's often presenting to schools, libraries, and conferences. Alan's new book is The Revenge of the Were-Penguin, which is the sequel to The Curse of the Were-Penguin, and continues the saga of the evil were-penguins of Brugaria. Our pal Chris Gravenstein called the Were-Penguins books the most hysterically hilarious books he's read in years. Fleur Bradley is an active member of SCBWI and MWA, where she has judged for the Edgars. She regularly does school and Skype visits, as well as librarian and educator conference talks on reaching reluctant readers. Originally from the Netherlands, she now lives in Colorado, not too far from the historic and haunted Stanley Hotel, which partially inspired her new book, Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. I can't wait to hear Fleur talk about her ghost hunting characters, JJ, Penny, and Emma, not only hunting ghosts at the most haunted place in town, but trying to solve a murder mystery. Lysar Savarin is an author of creepy magical stories for children. She holds a BA in creative writing and is a former elementary school teacher and instructional coach. When she isn't writing, she spends her time amidst the beautiful chaos of life with her husband and 4 children outside of Chicago, playing piano, reading, doing escape rooms, puzzles, ice cream, and chocolate, which we all can't live without, and finding new funny or suspenseful shows to watch. Her debut novel is middle grade contemporary fantasy, The Circus of Stolen Dreams, where 12-year-old Andrea must rescue her brother from the nightmarish Sandman who has trapped him in a circus built out of children's dreams and nightmares. Kate Alice Marshall started writing before she could hold a pen properly and never stopped. She lives in the Pacific Northwest with a chaotic menagerie of pets and family members who all conspire to keep her on her toes, and ventures out in the summer to kayak and camp along Puget Sound. She's the author of the YA novels I'm Still Alive and Rules for Vanishing. 13's, her middle grade debut, is a dark and twisted story about a sleepy town with a dark secret, and the 3 kids brave enough to uncover it. Jonathan Auxier, author of The Night Gardener, calls it a deliciously stay-up-all-night adventure that will shiver through you like a cold October wind. And lastly, we have Ellen O is co-founder, president, and CEO of We Need Diverse Books, a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing diversity in children's literature. A former adjunct college instructor and corporate attorney, she is the award-winning author of Spirit Hunters, which is a ghost story, and its sequel, Island of the Monsters, and the YA fantasy trilogy, the Prophecy series, Prophecy, Warrior, and King. She's the editor of WNDV's middle grade anthology, Flying Lessons and Other Stories, and the YA anthology, 1,000 Beginnings and Endings. Originally from New York City, Ellen lives in Bethesda, Maryland, with her husband and 3 children, and has yet to satisfy her quest for a decent bagel. I totally get it. Her new novel, Dragon Egg Princess, is a middle grade fantasy infused with Asian culture about a poor ranger and a lost princess, connected by a magical forest in which terrible magic dwells, and people disappear. So that took a long time, and glad you stayed with us. So first of all, can you each tell us a little bit about your new book? And we can start with Ellen.
Sure. Well, you had such a wonderful synopsis of it already, but The Revenge of the Were-Penguin is the sequel, as you mentioned, to The Curse of the Were-Penguin, which was picked by NPR as one of their best books of 2019.
Yay.
And in the book, which I have here, Bolt Waddle has turned into a hideous were-penguin. And a were-penguin is like a werewolf, but wetter, and is living with a penguin colony when his friend Annika finds him after having trekked for hundreds of miles. Her father has been imprisoned by another were-penguin, the evil Earl of Sven, and needs Bolt's help. And along the way, Bolt discovers another plot, one that endangers the entire world, and a plot that will be dealt with in the third book of the trilogy, which will be out next summer.
Yay. Awesome. And Fleur?
Well, Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, as Alan was saying, you've introduced it quite nicely. It's basically an Agatha Christie book for kids. So we have 4 suspects, a secluded location, which I modeled after the Stanley Hotel and named it the Barclay Hotel. And 3 kids that are kind of tagging along with the adults in their lives. They're invited to the hotel. They think it's a nice getaway, and it turns out that they are a suspect in the murder of Mr. Barclay. So the 3 kids are there, kind of tasked to solve the mystery. And in the book, I try to show what that might be done by collecting motive, means, opportunity, detective techniques. So it's a good introduction to the mystery novel for kids.
Awesome. And Kate?
My book 13s is a story about Eleanor, who has recently lost her mother in a house fire. Her mother disappeared after apparently setting the fire, and so she's sent to live with her aunt and her aunt's husband in the sleepy and seemingly perfect town of Eden Eld. But when she notices a grandfather clock outside her room that wasn't there the night before, she starts to notice more and more things in the town that are a little bit out of place and wrong. And she quickly discovers that she and her 2 new best friends, Pip and Otto, are at the center of a curse, and that on Halloween, all 3 of them will be turning 13 and the curse will come to fruition. So they have only a few days to find out what's happening and to stop it.
And Lorelai?
Yes, the Circus of Stolen Dreams is about a girl named Andrea who is grieving the disappearance of her brother. He disappeared 3 years prior to the book starting. And she finds out that her parents think it's time to get rid of the things of his that they've just kept in storage. And she wants to run away from all of the things that have anything to do with her loss, especially that news. And so instead of confronting it, she does what she always does. She hops on her bike and she bikes into the woods behind her house, where she finds a flyer for a circus that invites her to come and forget her troubles. And that's exactly what she wants to do. So she enters a circus that is built of dreams and nightmares. Every single tent in the circus is this immersive dream or nightmare or memory from the mind of a child who has been there before. And at first it works really great. She goes in a dream where she can fly, and she goes in a dream where she can hunt treasure with pirates. But eventually she ends up walking into a nightmare that her brother used to have before he disappeared. And she realizes if his nightmare is in the circus, that her brother's been there too, and that maybe it's not actually an escape like she thought it was. Maybe the dream circus is more of a trap. And she has to try and see if maybe her brother never left and if she might be able to still save him and bring him home.
Wow. I was thinking I want to go to that circus, but we all want to go there right now.
Something a little off.
Yes. And Ellen?
I was actually thinking that I really want to read everybody's books right now. They all sound amazing.
Me
So
too.
my recent book is Dragon Egg Princess, and it really is about a story of a boy who believes he has no magic in the most magic world, who teams up with a princess who is the most magical being. She's actually the last dragon, and they have to save the world, which is basically what I feel like we all have to do these days.
Yes. We just need a dragon. Oh, that is awesome. They are. They just sound so good. So I just want to ask, why do you all like spooky stories, and why do you think others like them? I mean, I know I like them. And anybody, does anyone want to chime in first?
I will chime in
Okay.
by objecting that I actually am scared to death of scary stories. When I write them, I know what parts I've made up and what parts I haven't, so I'm not that scared about what I wrote. But if I read any one of your books, I would probably be up all night and I'd be miserable, and I'd be next morning, I'd be shaking my fist. I kept me up all night. I couldn't sleep. So no, I actually do not like scary movies or scary books.
But that's like the best compliment to get, though. When somebody says, your book scared me so badly, I'm like, thank you.
Yes, the job is done.
I mean, for me, I had parents that were really mean. I mean, they would tell me all these really, really scary stories about monsters and ghosts that eat your face off and, you know, want to come after kids named Ellen. And so, like, I mean, every story was, like, just scary. And, like, I mean, I remember my parents took me to see Jaws when I was, like, I mean, I was still little. And I remember my mom was like, oh, I was so scared. I had to cover my face, but you never closed your eyes, Ellen. That was shocking. And I'm like, I was traumatized. You traumatized me. And so now I get to have my revenge by scaring other children, other people's children. And I think that's, like, you know, my favorite thing to do now.
It's awesome.
I'm like Alan. I don't like to be scared very much. I didn't like it when I was growing up. I'd have horrible nightmares and never really liked scary movies until my husband and our kids started to watch these shows about ghost hunting. And it was actually kind of interesting to watch that whole process, to watch them try to collect evidence and what evidence there was, and trying to decipher, you know, sort of scientifically whether that's possible. And that's what I tried to use in the book, because that's the part that doesn't scare me so much, is when you kind of look at it as a scientific experiment. But I'm like Alan, I just don't like to be scared at all.
I was an extremely sensitive child and afraid of monsters and ghosts. I actually had to have my little sister, who is 5 years younger than me, sleep in my room to protect me. But I could not stay away from scary stories, so I would read them and then they would just, like, live in my body for years. And when I got older, I started to be less frightened by the things that I had been frightened by when I was younger, and frightened by entirely new things. You know, I became a parent, and now I cannot read stories about very young kids in danger. Mm. And so I just became really interested in what scares different people and why, and more drawn to things that were strange and unsettling, but didn't rely on the kind of fear that comes from like cruelty, which I think there's a lot of in adult horror movies and things. And so I really love writing scary stories for younger audiences, where you can have that spooky creature and scary atmosphere, but it still ultimately comes down to a positive view of the characters and of humanity.
I might be a rarity here, but I really liked reading scary stories as a kid. I liked creeping myself out. I would go to the library and check out true ghost stories. In fourth grade, I remember just all the time, just ghost stories, just sitting and scaring myself silly. But as an adult now and as a parent, I kind of look at things a little bit differently. And I've chosen to write creepy stories because I think our world, a lot of times, like even kids, grown-ups, like hard things happen to us. The world can be a scary place. Things can happen that are sad. But I love writing those stories in the context of a middle grade book, because you can take those scary, sad, hard things and you can show the story of somebody persevering through it and coming out the other side stronger and braver. And so I really want to acknowledge the tougher things that can happen through the context of these kind of creepy elements. But like I wrote The Circus of Stolen Dreams while I was grieving a loss in my family. And so it touches on that grief. And I think you can do a lot with fear and finding ways to be brave. And I think those lessons are really important for kids and grown-ups too. I need that lesson for myself. So I guess I write for all of us, hopefully.
Yes, definitely. So my next question is like, so do you believe in ghosts? And have any of you had a real supernatural experience? So I think, Fleur, we'll start with you. Have you seen any ghosts at the Stanley Hotel?
Oh, when I worked on Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I had the story sort of together that I wanted that Agatha Christie style mystery, but I couldn't figure out the setting. And then we went to the Stanley Hotel, which is here in Colorado in Estes Park. And for those of you not that familiar, it was in The Shining, in the movie that is based on the Stephen King book, and he stayed there supposedly and wrote the book. But in any case, I went to the hotel and we did the ghost hunting tour. They have this whole thing going on where you can go around all these spaces, and they give you this app on your phone where you can go around and detect it. And they have these other tools, and they have all the good stories. Of course, nothing happened to me. There was nothing. It was beautiful, and the hotel is absolutely amazing. The woodwork in the rooms, and I'm just admiring all of that, and the furniture. I'm like, oh, look at all this beautiful furniture. But there were no ghosts, and I was really hoping for it, but no ghosts for me. And I'm kind of a skeptic in the sense that one of my characters in the book named Penny is also a lot like me, where she's a bookworm and she likes to see the evidence of the ghosts in the hotel. So I did not see any ghosts. I'm hoping to go back and maybe have more luck.
Wow. Anyone else see any ghosts or supernatural experiences that you've had?
I don't know. Maybe. About a year, maybe 2 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I swear there was a woman in a bride's outfit hovering over my bed, like at the foot of my bed, staring at me, and not being that frightened about it, thinking there was something about it that wasn't eerie. And I turned to wake my wife and said, hey, there's someone. But then she made a noise, and I looked away, and I looked up, and the apparition was gone. Now,
wow,
it's the only time and I then got out of bed, looking around, so I wasn't sleeping, but that was the only time. So whether that was my imagination or an actual ghost I've never seen since, I am not sure. But that's the only time.
Wow. And Ellen?
Sorry, I hit my hand by accident.
Oh.
I had hand surgery, guys, so I'm... I come from a family where my parents will tell me all the time about ghosts being in the room with us. I mean, they'll just come in and go, oh, there's a ghost here. And I always believe them. And I always would have that reaction of like every hair on the back of my neck standing up. So like, in fact, I remember my first apartment, my parents came to visit. I had just had my oldest daughter, and they came and stayed for the night, and they told me in the morning, we can't sleep here. You have too many ghosts. They just bother you all night. And then they left, and I had to stay in the apartment with ghosts that I could never see. So like I was always like scared, but I never saw them, and everyone would tell me about them until I was writing Spirit Hunters, which was my first ghost story. And I was writing the scariest chapter, at least I believe it's the scariest chapter. It's in the basement. There's a terrible ghost attacking Harper. And of course, this is my own fault. I write at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm just a late night writer. So it's like 2 in the morning, I'm writing in my room. My little white dog, Toki, comes running in. He starts barking like crazy. Like, I mean, he's really, really angry, barking at nothing. And I'm like, shut up, shut up. And then I feel it. I felt like this thing just go right past me, and every hair on my head stood up, and I shuddered. I literally felt them in the room with me. So I picked up my dog and I ran out of the house. True story. I'm now outside in the pitch dark, looking at my house going, oh my gosh, I don't know if this was a good idea, because now I'm outside. And in the morning, I told my husband about it, and my husband said to me, so you left your whole family sleeping in the house with a ghost? and you just took the dog and ran out. Is that what you did? And I'm like, but you were sleeping, so you were safe. So anyway.
Funny how you think that certain things make you safe. Because I remember watching a movie when I was my babysitter. We watched this movie, and I don't know, it was Tales of Terror or something. And there was a little tiki puppet guy who chased the woman around. And I thought I was fine as long as I was not touching the floor and it was dark. So until I was like in high school, I would have to like reach out and turn the light off and jump in my bed as fast as I could. So, how about you?
I still do that.
I kind of do too.
I had all these Care Bear stuffed animals when I was a kid, and I used to like line them up around my bed at night when I felt scared, because I thought they would like protect me with their Care Bear powers. But yeah, I think I'm open to the possibility of there being ghosts. I think I would lean more in the direction of maybe it would be like somebody who's still got an attachment here that they haven't been able to let go of or something. And my mom's super intuitive in that way. I'm not really, but I do sometimes get a sense of like, maybe if a place has given me a weird feeling, or like I walked in somewhere and maybe felt like a heaviness or just kind of a strange feeling, and then later find out that like maybe it had an event in its past or something like that. So maybe just like places and history kind of like lingering a little bit. So I guess I'm not like 100% on board, but I'm definitely open to the possibility.
Awesome. And Kate?
Well, I don't have a ghost story, but I was actually doing a bunch of reading about sleep paralysis. And then a couple weeks later, I had an incident of sleep paralysis. And so that's where you partially wake up and you're aware of the room around you, but you can't move, and there are often auditory and visual hallucinations, and it's often like a dark shadow at the end of your bed and things like that. So it's a theory that many ghost experiences are because of sleep paralysis. So I woke up in this state, completely unable to move or speak, and I was like, oh, I'm experiencing sleep paralysis. That's cool, like I'll stay calm. And then these little footsteps start going around my bed, and this tiny little demonic giggle, like a little child imp. And I could feel a hand touching my back softly. And I was trying to speak to wake myself up or to wake my husband up. And even though I was telling myself, this is obviously sleep paralysis, you just read about this, you know what it is. It was so terrifying to not be able to move or scream or ask for help, and just sitting there feeling like I was trying to thrash my whole body and nothing was working. And there's this, evil little giggle going around the bed. So that's my big scary story that, if I hadn't known what was happening, I would absolutely have thought that I was being tormented by some little child demon. But it lasted 12 seconds, and then I flopped my hand over onto my husband's face and I'm like, help.
Oh, wow. Yikes. Yeah, that would be just so scary. So what are you guys, do you have Halloween plans, and are they different this year than others? I mean, we've got, I'm trying to figure out how I can successfully launch candy at kids walking by. I'm sure a lot of our Halloween plans are different, but do you guys have anything going on? Well, Rilla, you have kids, so what are your kids doing?
Yeah, we have some friends in the neighborhood who are going to have tables set out.
Oh, cool.
With some candy so kids can go around. And my daughter was actually instrumental in like petitioning to like find, a way to our neighborhood. And so we're going to do that. We usually have friends come over. It'll just be our family, but my kids are actually dressing up as characters from my book, and my husband is too. So we're just going to take some pictures of that and go get table candy.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Yes, we're excited.
That sounds like fun. Anyone else?
We're probably going to watch scary movies, I think. is what we're gonna do. My kids are grown. I'm not sure who will come to the door, so we'll put some candy out just in case. It's kind of sad, but it's probably the safest way. So that's what we'll probably do. A friend of mine came up with the whole contraption where she built it where she could launch the candy down a slide.
Yeah,
So
I
it
saw one
gets
of
the
those.
kids. Yeah, which I thought was
My
pretty
neighbor
neat.
has one set up.
Yeah, it's neat. It's something. So I as much as I feel sorry for the kids out there, I think we'll probably just stay in and watch a movie. That'll probably be it.
Yeah, I think us too.
We have a pretty popular neighborhood with kids. Usually get a couple hundred trick-or-treaters. No idea what we'll get this year. We might have 3. We might have 20, so we may have a lot of candy left over. I wanted to get a pea shooter and, you know, poke kids in the eyes as they're walking by, but my wife nixed that idea. Instead, we're putting things in individual bags and leaving them on a table in front of our house.
That's a good idea. Someone had the idea of put them out like an Easter egg hunt in your front yard. Like make the kids walk around and try to find it. I thought that was kind of cool. I haven't quite figured it out yet. So Ellen, who is with you? Who's joined us?
Oh, he was scratching at the door, and I could literally hear him taking the paint off. So I had to finally let him in.
Now, does he get dressed up for Halloween?
My kids like to do that. He's the old crotchety dog. So, but we have a golden doodle. And she's more fun to like dress up. He just gets angry and runs away.
Awesome. So, what was your best Halloween costume when you were a kid? I remember mine. I think my mom made me Raggedy Ann and she made the whole yarn wig and painted the tights, and it was the best costume. Marveling at how she had time to do that.
My best was when I dressed up as Joan of Arc burning at the stake in 4th grade.
How did you do that?
I had like a cardboard tube, and I made paper flames going up, and we cut up an emergency blanket to make like armor, which, not historically accurate, but it got the point across.
Wow. And did everyone know who you were?
No, I had to tell everyone, which I was very happy to do.
Oh, that is hilarious.
I am not good at Halloween. I never have been, but my kids are amazing. My oldest daughter, she used to, actually, this is my favorite story. She dressed up as a zombie. And when she was like her first year of high school, she dressed up as a zombie, and it was really like authentic with the makeup and the blood and everything. And then she went to the local elementary school and stood right outside as school let out and scared all the kids. I was like, that's my girl, that's my kid. Yeah, I enjoyed that too much.
That's awesome. I hope that was taped. Awesome. How about you, Alan?
I always went as gag costumes that I'd myself at the last minute. That'd be kind of easy. Like I'd wear a devil's outfit with a pig nose and I'd go as devil's ham. Or
that's good.
I put road stripes down my shirt and have a cleaver and I go as roadkill. So kind of gags that were kind of scary, but kind of clever.
Oh, super funny. Those are the best if you have to think about them. One of our friends dressed all in black and then had those little chicks, like little fluffy chicks stuck to him. And he was a chick magnet.
When I was a teacher along those lines, like all the kids got really into it, and I had to teach them. I couldn't wear anything like super uncomfortable, so I paper clipped Smarties to my pants, and so I was Smarty Pants. That was it.
So much fun. How about you, Fleur?
There's no Halloween in Holland where I grew up, so no costumes there. But when, as an adult, my husband and I once did Indiana Jones and the Damsel in Distress. So I was the damsel in distress. That was the closest to creative as we got, because if you look for the costumes in the store, it's so expensive. So we always tried to kind of get creative.
So that must have seemed really strange coming from Holland. And then what was your first experience with Halloween? Like, you must have thought we were all crazy people.
No, it's so fun because kids come to the door and they're in costumes. It's kind of like school visits now, you you actually get to meet the kids and talk to them and everything. So I think it's super fun. But yeah, it was definitely a whole new holiday to get used to. Yeah.
Oh, that is so much fun. So, what advice would you guys give to aspiring young authors? Like, did you start writing younger? What would your words of wisdom be to young people? Do you want to start, Ellen?
Sure. So, I got lots of advice, but I'm going to just narrow it down to two things. The first thing is read as much as you can. If you love music, listen to music. It inspires you. If you love to play sports, you watch sports on TV. If you love to dance, you watch ballet, you watch dancers. And the same thing with writing. You get inspired by writing and reading. You're reading great things. It makes you want to write great things yourself. And it shows you how to write interesting things too. You see, how did they do that? Wow, that person scared me. How did they scare me? And you kind of really study it, and it can really make you a much better writer. And the other thing, which kids never want to hear, and I never wanted to hear when I was a kid, was revise. If you saw my first drafts of work, you would be horrified, Halloween horrified about how horrible a writer I am in my first drafts. But by revising, eventually my work gets to be pretty good. So I think all of us would agree that we are not probably known as a great first draft writer, but it takes writing and going back. And if you're a kid and you're in school and you just write that paper or that story just one more time or two more times, I think you'll be amazed about how much better your writing would be.
Wow. Anyone else?
I mean, I think I can tag on to that. I actually have a graph when I do virtual school visits where I show how much of my novel changed from first draft to final draft. I did like a PDF comparison, and this was my debut, and I thought it would be better with my second book, but turns out it's not too far away. But 98.5% of my manuscript changed from first draft to the published version. And so I think for me, that really proved, I wish for the love of all that is good that I could just get it right the first time, but that's just not how writing works. So if you can really find a way to dig into revisions and to be okay with putting the words down, even if it's not the way that you wished it would be, if the words aren't coming out right, or it's just not there, you can fix something that exists. You can't fix something that you're too scared to write in the first place just because you're worried it won't be right. I tell myself that every single time I write, that I can fix it if I write it first. And then I also, I wrote a lot as a kid. I wrote short stories, I wrote poems, and I read a lot too. And I think that all helped form me as well. So kind of an echo of Alan.
And I just want to say that writing is hard. It's hard. It's really hard. And yet it's fun and it's so satisfying. And I mean, we wouldn't do it if we didn't love it, right? And if there's a story that you want to tell, write it. Don't worry about anything else. Just like if there's a voice in your head that's telling you, you can't write, nobody cares about that story, don't listen to it. Turn it off and just write your story, because we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, that is very true. So Tessa would like to know, we have a question from the audience. Tessa wants to know, how do you keep your scary books appropriate for a middle grade audience and not make them too scary? So Alan, you make yours funny, but are they still scary?
I think I mentioned early on as some of the authors that I am not I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to scary things. So, I certainly am not going to make my books too scary, because that's not something that I like. And I think write what you like to read. But certainly, whenever you write you're always aware of your audience, whether you're writing for an adult audience or YA audience or a middle grade audience or a younger audience than that. So you want to make sure what you're writing is appropriate for them. I know there was one scene in Revenge of the Were-Penguin that my publisher decided was too scary. And I think they made the right decision. I'm glad that they had me kind of make it not quite as queasy in that one scene, but certainly have to be aware of who you're frightening and how far to take it. I don't want people staying up all night having nightmares, at least not from my books.
Ellen does.
Oh yeah, tell me you had nightmares. I'd be happy. I want to write as scary as possible. And if it's not scary enough, I did not do my job right. Ow, I hit my own hands. Oh my God. Sorry. But in terms of writing scary, I actually never worry about how scary I'm being. I just write it. And I just write it as scary as it's coming out of my head. And I have actually never been told it was too much until my Spirit Hunters 2, I had a scene that was actually too much even for me. And I revised it to be a little less scary. But other than that, no, it's like no holds barred. I just write.
Mine probably aren't that scary, at least not compared to what Ellen is talking about. Because I knew I was writing for a slightly younger audience. I didn't want to make it so, plus like Alan, I get scared pretty easily. So it was easy for me to write it not so scary because I made it about appropriate for me, which worked out. So everything that is scary in Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I wanted to make sure that it was something that was a problem that is solvable, meaning that it isn't so scary that it's still haunting after the book. I wanted to keep a certain benevolence behind the supernatural that's in the book. And that wasn't too hard because I just made it right for me.
I think that what I try to keep in mind is that with every book, you're making a set of promises to your reader. And with a scary story, you make certain promises about how scary it's going to be and what kind of scary it's going to be. And for my middle grade work, I try to make the promise that you might get creeped out, it might be spooky, it might give you goosebumps, but you're going to be emotionally safe at the end of it. And it's like looking at a roller coaster and knowing, okay, you know, all the safety systems are in place and this one goes upside down, but that one doesn't. And you don't know exactly what it's going to feel like when you go through it, but you get enough of a sense from the tone of the book and the back cover and the early chapters to see what kinds of danger and what kinds of emotional danger the characters are going to be in. And you teach your reader that so that they can prepare themselves and make their own decisions about whether it's going to be too scary. And in my experience, I have always way underestimated how scary kids want things to be. And like I said, I was a very fragile child. So I'm writing for little fragile child me. And then I get these like 9-year-olds who are reading my significantly scarier young adult stuff and going like, it needed to be bloodier. So, you know, there's a lot of variation in what kids can handle. And it's just a matter of making sure that the ones that need more reassurance and those stronger promises have it going in and know that they're going to be safe in your hands.
I think there are a couple of layers to my answer to this question. One of them is kind of the haunted house concept. Like, why do people go into haunted houses? Because sometimes it's fun to be a little bit scared. So there's that layer. So I do have some things when I was drafting it where I was kind of like, I don't know, like this is pretty creepy, but hopefully fun creepy, the kind of creepy that might give you goosebumps, but not like terrify you forever. But then I think my larger view of the scary stuff is I have this quote above my fireplace that says, fairy tales are more than true, not because they teach us that dragons exist, but because they teach us dragons can be beaten. And so similar to what Kate said, I will have a purpose to, I do like in Circus of Stolen Dreams, there are just some creepy things that are just meant to be creepy, but the biggest scary part of the whole thing has a deeper purpose to it that really ties in to the journey that my character has to take to heal. And while I can't promise that it will all be like totally fine at the end, I can promise that the endings of my books will be hopeful and that evil will not win. You know, if we pick up an adult horror novel like by someone like Stephen King, evil might win. Good might not win the day. But that's one of the beautiful things about writing for kids, is that I may scare you, but I will not leave you in a desperate or a sad or a lonely place. Hopefully you'll feel like the pieces of your heart get to heal alongside with the character through these sometimes scary elements.
Am I the only one though that enjoyed like Goosebumps and the way like he would have those endings where you'd be like, oh, everything's safe, and then no, the monsters come and eat you all. Like, I mean, like, there was something kind of like cool about that too, no? I mean,
It's fun for a little ambivalence, I think. I think that's fun. Where it's sort of, you know, you think everything's okay, and then it's sort of like, ooh, but is it? That's fun, you know.
Yeah.
For kids, it's a little bit harder to do that, I think, because, you know, also depending on where you sort of fall in the age brackets, but you try to at least make them feel like, okay, everything's going to be okay, and the characters are okay, and you know.
Well, middle grade, there's a huge range of kids that read middle grades, and I guess as an author, like, you don't want to be the one to scar them for life.
There's some cool stuff being published though for the older ages now, which I think, or that older sort of middle grade section, which is great because it means that, you know, and sometimes kids can read middle grade until they're a bit older.
I love it. I love reading middle grade.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have a question from Vanessa, and she would like to know, what was the scariest scene you've written? I think I want to ask Alan, what was the one that they took out? Because it sounds like was that the scariest scene you've written?
Well, that one scene was probably a combination of scary and disturbing. I don't want to give away the ending of Revenge of the Were-Penguin, but there's a scene where the evil were-penguin eats someone, and it was a very graphic, probably too graphic way. So while the
eating anyone
changed, the fluids and things that were described were somewhat toned down. I traditionally don't write a lot of scary things. My Curse of the Were-Penguin trilogy is really my first foray into horror. So there are a few elements, though, in some of the books I think are scarier than others, but I don't want to give away any plot points by being any more specific than that.
Anyone else?
I'm realizing that a lot of people who've read my book have mentioned the same scene, about like even grown-ups who've read it. So there's a scene when my main character Andrea realizes her brother might be in the circus, and she's chasing after someone she thinks maybe it could be him, and she ends up going into this nightmare tent called the Frigid Place, and she stays too long in the nightmare, and that's one of the rules of the dream circus, is to not stay too long in a nightmare. And she wakes up at home from this nightmare, and the Frigid Place nightmare followed her into her house. So all of this ice and snow is in her home, and there's just like snow and ice cracking through the walls, and she goes down in the kitchen, and her parents are frozen in place too, and her dad was writing her a note, and his hand froze while he was writing it, and their eyes are closed, but she could see that they're moving. So that's probably it. But that's also a really big moment for her, because it bolsters her realization that she is sick of playing. The Sandman is the ringmaster of the circus, and she's sick of playing his game, and she's had enough, and she's gonna start taking control of things a little bit more proactively. So scary, but then she'll make some good choices.
Wow.
So wait, I just realized I actually have really scary scenes in all of my books. But I think the scariest conceptually is probably in my first trilogy, which was my YA trilogy. It's because demons come and invade the world. And what they do is they eat humans from the inside out and wear their skin as like a Halloween costume. And so I thought that was really neat and fun. And most kids like really enjoy that part of the book, to be honest. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
Oh my
Your
God.
definition of fun is not the same as my definition of fun, by the way. Just,
I know, I see, Alan, I see your face and you're like, oh.
It's so funny because Alan is, I don't know if on Zoom, if everyone is in the same place as I see them, but I have Ellen over here on my left and I have Alan over here on my right. And it's like, it's very funny. So what about you, Kate? Because yours sounds really
Well,
scary.
It's
But
it's hard for me to think of which scenes are scary because when I'm writing a scary scene, I'm like giggling to myself and going, yes. And it's just like exciting and it's like putting together a creepy puzzle for me. So I don't have like the fear reaction while I'm actually writing it. But I think the one scene that was actually very unsettling for me to write was actually in my most recent young adult novel. It's mostly unsettling because I have little kids, and there's a videotape of when the main character was 3.5 years old, and she ended up on this expedition with her mother and a bunch of other, a group of other scientists, and they've been seeing people who look like them and running from them, and they take shelter in this bunker, and they all get inside, and they've got the main character in there with them, the little girl, and everyone's safe, and then they hear her calling for them outside, and they can't figure out which one is real.
oh, wow.
And that writing the mother both trying to figure out which of these girls is real and whether one of them is a threat, and then realizing that all of these other adults around her were afraid and on edge and armed, and she had these two little girls. That was the most tense and scary thing that I've written.
And Fleur?
I think the scariest, I was just thinking about it as I was listening to everybody else. For me, the scariest has always been the weather, which seems like an odd thing, but in Colorado, if you have a blizzard, you know, if you were out in a blizzard, you can die. It's pretty quickly and pretty scary. And growing up in the Netherlands, it's about a mile below sea level. So we were instilled with this fear of water, sort of, because if the dikes break, you know, you're swimming basically. If you're lucky, you probably drown. So for me, a lot of my biggest fears for me come from weather or the elements. And in Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I have a scene where there's a pretty serious blizzard outside. Nobody can leave the hotel. And one of the characters, the detective, goes outside to chase a suspect and ends up in the maze, which is part of the hotel in the middle of a blizzard. So that's, for me, I know that doesn't sound very scary maybe on the outset, but for me that's just really terrifying, is to be stuck in a blizzard or stuck in any sort of weather. But it definitely doesn't, you know, I've heard some pretty terrifying stuff from everybody else.
It's kind of like Lorelai. I mean, that's kind of similar, the ice following her home and freezing.
Yes, versus scarier though, I think. Wow. Ooh.
All right, so now we have a question from Liz, and Liz would like to know, what kind of books would your main character like to read? I like this one. People usually ask what you want to read, but what would your characters like to read? Anyone?
I'll go on this one.
Okay.
I think I have 3 kid characters, and they're all kind of different, which is fun. One of my main characters is JJ, and he's not a super strong reader. He would read graphic novels, I think. He liked those a lot. And then I have a character, Penny, who's a little most like me. She likes to read a lot, so I think she would read more, I don't know, maybe Ellen's books and Lorelai's for sure. And then I have a character who's kind of adventurous and fun and everything, so I think she'd read Alan's books. So, yeah.
That is awesome. And do penguins read, Alan?
Well, Mr. Popper's Penguins is a big favorite of Bolt's. He likes reading a lot of aquatic books about mammals and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Charlotte's Webbed Feet, another big favorite of my characters.
Oh, that is
Not read
fantastic.
much.
I think Andrea would start the book. If you caught her before the events of the story began, she would probably read fantasy in just any way she could escape her current reality. But I think I'd like to think once the events of the story complete, that she would
Uh-oh.
be
I think we're losing Lorelai.
stories and stories
Oh, there.
of book actions on purpose.
Oh, all right, Lorelai, I think we've lost you. Ellen, how about you?
Well, the characters in Spirit Hunters would be reading Dragon Egg Princess.
I love it. That is fantastic. Oh, and now we have, oh, Lorelai's coming back, hopefully. So we have one more question, because I think we're getting to the end of our time together, unfortunately. If you were to write your book in a different genre, what genre would it be? That one's tough. Oh, hi, Lorelai's back. But we can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yay, sorry about that, I'm here.
Yay.
I would write a documentary, Spirit Hunter.
Oh, that would be good. Great. Fleur?
I think a fantasy would be fun. Like I came up with the Barclay Hotel, modeling it off the Stanley Hotel, but kind of adding fantasy elements in the sense of there's a cupcake shop and a bowling alley and all these over the top sort of kid friendly fun things in the hotel. So it would be, yeah, so it would be fun to maybe do a bit more of a fantasy angle. But I always end up, I've written short stories for some time before I wrote novels. It always ends up being a mystery for some reason. No matter what I try to write, I always end up in a mystery. So.
I kind of like the ice cream shop or cupcake shop. That sounds good.
It is.
Awesome. All right, so let's see. So I have one last question. Candy corn, satanic evil, or delicious candy?
I love candy corn.
You love candy corn?
And those little pumpkin things that you can also get, like
Oh,
you can get the bag of pumpkin things. I'm all over that. Yeah.
I like the little pumpkin things.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Are the only options evil or delicious? Can this be horrible? Is that an option? Because frankly, candy corn.
So if there's no other candy available, you'll eat the candy corn.
You know, you got your Butterfingers, you got your Heat bars, and you got your O. Henry bars, and you got your candy corn. I'm sorry, those are the worst Halloween candies. No offense for any fans, but
I love the Butterfingers.
My daughter loves them. We had an argument actually this last week about it. She said she loves candy corn, and I told her she was crazy. So.
I just want to say, if candy corn is the only candy available, I would eat broccoli.
You would eat broccoli. And what is your favorite candy, Ellen?
Anything.
Now we're on a candy discussion. I have to talk about candy.
Anything chocolate. I mean, I just eat. If it's got chocolate, I will eat it pretty much. Except chocolate covered candy corn. No.
Kate, what about you? Are you for or against candy corn, and what's your favorite?
I'm a big believer in not forming strong opinions about things unnecessarily. I carry enough stress.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I am ambivalent on the candy corn question. I really love chocolate caramels and salted caramel and all of that. So that's my go-to.
That is good, the salted caramel. And the little bullseyes too, I like those.
I've always thought earwax would taste like candy corn.
Awesome. All right. So now we have gone to we've gone to the crazy place. Fleur, what's your favorite candy? Just because now I want to go to the store.
Oh, I eat all the candy. You
All the
know,
candy.
just yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll take all the candy. Although I'm more of a chocolate. Like if we can rate the candies,
Yeah.
it's obviously the chocolate is at the top,
Yeah.
and then at the bottom somewhere is the hard candy. My kids used to go trick or treating, and it was sort of like a thing where they try to go to the houses that had the big giant candy bars.
Yeah. The full. Yeah.
Yes, but anything chocolate. So I try to make sure before Halloween comes around that I only get the candy that I don't like, because
Yes.
otherwise I'll eat it.
I tell my husband, no Reese's. Do not buy Reese's.
Oh yeah, Reese's. Yeah.
I'll eat them all.
Yeah.
What about you, Lorelai?
I'm not a fan of candy corn. I keep it in the house for the kids, but dark chocolate, darker, better. Preferably just like that's it. Sometimes salted caramel, but just like dark chocolate. It's great.
I love it. So I can't tell you all how much fun this has been. This has just been great, and I kind of love that we ended it on the candy note. And just so you know, we do in the chat, we have a link to all of your books, and we highly encourage you to read them. Be scared. You can laugh. I certainly want to read all of them now, especially before Halloween. And the authors have all signed book plates. So when you order their books from us, we will send you a book plate. And so great. Thank you. Yep. And Tessa just has posted it again. So I just want to thank everyone so much for being here, and have a happy Halloween. And we hope to see you all soon. Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. Thank you.